It's Talk Erie and the Joel and Natalie Show. We're live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here at 5th and State, having the crucial conversations that Erie needs from here on a gorgeous day. And coming in to talk about opportunities is our friend Kim Thomas here of Infinite Erie. Welcome back, Kim.
Thanks so much, Joel. Happy Monday. You're right. Beautiful Monday for sure.
Absolutely. One of those... what do you call it? Chamber of Commerce days.
That's right.
It's raining tomorrow. We need the rain, but we'll take it today.
Anytime.
All right. So here we are, October, fourth quarter, 2025. Tell us a little bit about kind of that origin story of Infinite Erie from the get-go to where we are now.
All right. Take it back to the beginning, right? So
Yeah.
it's more than 3 years ago now. And it even dates back further than that. So several years ago, as we're coming out of the pandemic, in the midst of the pandemic, you've got leadership that's getting together and recognizing that, hey, the federal government's talking about rolling out all of these opportunities, all of these new funds that are going to be allocated, coming through states and to other organizations, and, leadership at the Erie level saying, okay, what do we need to do to get our fair share of these funds, right, to ensure that we're ready and successful in securing these funds. So that was the impetus for the creation of the playbook and ultimately Infinite Erie. It was, Erie Insurance, the Community Foundation, the Chamber, the ECRA, the Redevelopment Authority, all of the community and economic development practitioners and stakeholders in the community coming together and working with Bruce Katz, our friend Bruce Katz, urban advisor, to say, how do we do that? What do we need to do? And Bruce said, listen, you've got to have a pipeline of projects that if those projects are ready to go and they're transformational in nature, you're able to leverage those federal resources specifically, and that's really accelerating Erie's next renaissance, Erie's, the next transformation of Erie. So that was where the playbook was developed to say, okay, we've got a dozen or so strategic plans that have been developed over the past decade. We've got a lot of work that was happening at the time. So it was a review of all of those strategic plans, including, the downtown streetscape plan, neighborhood strategic plans, Erie Refocus, certainly, Emerge 2040, et cetera. What are the most transformational opportunities that are somewhat of that low-hanging fruit that, again, you could make the case for investment in those, get those going, and you'd have a real thing going here for Erie.
You had to do like the inventory,
That's
did
right.
you not?
That was exactly right.
It was kind of like, okay, what is out there? What can go into from the possibility into the actual opportunity? And you came up with what, over 30 plans?
That's right. So yes, out of all of those plans and, interviews with different stakeholders, 50 or so stakeholders in the community, 35 transformational investment opportunities were part of the original investment playbook that was released in July of 2022 was when we actually rolled that out. And those initiatives and projects all in various stages, right? Some still to this day may even just be a concept or an idea. Some are actually in implementation, and some are really just trying to think about, okay, we've implemented, we've been successful, we've seen, the impact of these initiatives, and now how do we grow this and keep it going? So again, all in various stages, even to this point today, but all worthwhile in terms of thinking through how we can implement those.
Let's talk about some of those that are in operation today, just so people understand that there's a method to this whole thing, right?
Yeah, there absolutely is. And to be clear, I mean, the work that Infinite Erie is doing has really evolved over the past 3 years, right? Really trying to identify what specifically our role is in the community and economic development ecosystem. And what we've identified is that it's an absolute supporting role, right? We're convening the leaders and the doers, those practitioners who are participating in these types of activities on a day-to-day basis and trying to implement projects, by bringing them together and helping ensure that there's assistance and capacity to get those projects over the finish line. It's helping to catalyze additional investment and additional progress. And then certainly our role in championing for the success and advocating for resources to get these projects done. But yeah, so some of those projects that we're talking about, I mean, you see the work that's, happening in downtown Erie. That was a big part of the original investment playbook. We've now taken the playbook, the original one, and divided it into 4 portfolios: neighborhoods and main streets, anchor investments in the greater core, which is really where you see that downtown development happening, the Bayfront development being a priority, and the 12th Street corridor being a priority as well. Industry clusters and infrastructure. So you see some of the work that's happening out at Penn State Behrend, with the Manufacturing Competitiveness Center. You see what's happening with the investment in First Ascent and Gannon, and things that are happening around Project Neptune at Gannon University as well. Sure. So those are those types of initiatives. And then inclusive entrepreneurship. So working very closely to help entities launch initiatives like Project Front Door that the EDDC has really taken on for small business support, and supporting Erie's Black Wall Street and all of their efforts, and trying to figure out what investments need to be made into that ecosystem specifically to help continuing to support small businesses and entrepreneurial-minded people.
How does the capital work? Because you're not a funder.
That is correct.
Right?
That's correct.
So, but you're a convener and a connector. So talk about, if you're putting money, if you want to put money in a bucket for entrepreneurship, how would that happen?
Yeah, so it's really about, again, providing that assistance and the capacity of the organizations to really sit down and talk to all of those who are working in that space. So if you take the construction trades training program expansion as a really great example of how we've seen all of those practitioners in our Neighborhoods and Main Streets portfolio, the neighborhood groups, the leaders there, coming together early on and working on a shared agenda and saying, like, okay, it's great if there's going to be millions of dollars in investment in home repair activities and the like. That's wonderful. You can send it here and, secure those resources all you want. We cannot find the contractors and the construction workers to actually engage and do this work. So right then and there was born directly from those practitioners this notion that if we're going to be able to do this work, we have to ensure that the workforce is there. So that was when ECAT and others came together and said, let's expand the construction trades training program. So all Infinite Erie is doing is, again, bringing those individuals and those organizations together so that they can have those important conversations around how can we improve everything that we're doing? How can we be more successful? How can we accelerate the work that we're doing and overcome these barriers along the way? So that's really where Infinite Erie plugs in. So ultimately, from that example specifically, you've got this partnership to expand the construction trades training program along with Build CDC to allow for on-the-job training opportunities. So it's really not only allowing these individuals who are participating in the training program to get the classroom experience, but now they have the opportunity to go into the neighborhoods and get that hands-on experience while being paid, and at the same time, the neighborhoods and the homeowners and residents in these neighborhoods are seeing the repairs and infrastructure improvements on their homes. So that's all happening. From a funding perspective, by bringing those partners together and recognizing that was a need, then you are able to show the impact that it's going to have. So that's when you have, in this case, Erie Insurance, ECRA, and the Community Foundation coming together and investing into that program specifically. Okay. So that it's about, again, bringing all of those cross-sector partners, funders to the table, identifying what are the greatest challenges that we're facing and how are we going to overcome them. Being able to show the funders the impact, getting their buy-in, quite literally, and then leveraging those resources at the state and federal level as well. So Infinite Erie only provides resources in terms of our internal capacity building. So as we engage with, subject matter experts to provide an organization with, some capital stack expertise if they have really complex real estate development projects. And maybe, their organization isn't used to really taking on those multi-million-dollar initiatives. How do we put together a complex capital stack? How do we write grants to try and secure really competitive resources at the public level? How do we, if we're going to be leasing out space, how do we put together a pro forma to give investors, a sense of comfort that there's actually going to be return on everything that they're doing? So it's providing that capacity is really Infinite Erie's role. You've got this shared agenda, have the shared goals throughout the community. Let's make sure that recognizing how important these initiatives are, that we have the capacity and the wherewithal to get them over the finish line.
Talk about who is sharing the agenda, because this is public, this is private, this is nonprofit, right? I mean,
Yes,
that's the whole
it's all
point
of the
it
above.
all. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's cross sector. It's public, private, philanthropic. So you've got leaders at the table of Infinite Erie specifically from all of those sectors, and we've been very intentional about making sure that we have those partners at the high level of community and economic development. Right. So it's sitting with the Erie Chamber and Growth Partnership, the Erie County Redevelopment Authority. It's sitting with the city. It's sitting with ECRA. In terms of what some of their funding priorities are. It's sitting with the Community Foundation for the same reason to determine what some of their priorities are. It's bringing all of those partners. It's working alongside the CRIS, again, to provide some capacity to these organizations so they have a shot at securing those resources as well. So, yes, so this shared agenda, what we did early on was, again, bring all of those various partners into the room and to really have a good understanding of what organizational priorities and goals were, the strategies that have already been, developed and adopted throughout the community, having a good understanding of those strategies that have been adopted and where is all the overlap coming. And so when we talk about a shared priorities, it's really around, everything we always talk about. We all want to see population growth, right? We want to see GDP growth. We want to see median household income starting to increase. We want to see our workforce grow. So as a community, that wants to grow and thrive, it's really those North Star priorities, I guess, if you will.
Are those really in the long run? Those are the KPIs, those are the key performance indicators.
That's exactly right. Yes, those are the ones that we've identified. Again, North Star, highest level.
Yeah.
But if everything that we're trying to do is pointing toward those goals. And from initiatives that Infinite Erie supports, when we talk about playbook projects, we talk about them being, I know we throw the word around a lot, but transformational in nature. It's wonderful if, you've got a project to develop two affordable housing units, right? We've been doing that a lot along the way as a community, the onesies and twosies, as we hear often. But what we really want to see and put a lot of effort, support, capacity, and resources behind is a 30, 50, 100 unit, building, or, again, we have this goal of 250 units specifically for affordable housing. But that's where we're really looking, seeing where the needle will move significantly so we can start to see that decline turn around.
Just for that part of it, the recent announcement about development on the Lower West Side on our West Bayfront. I don't. Isn't that Arteris?
It is
investing?
Arteris. Yes.
Is that something that would be kind of a playbook, kind of a game-changing kind of place?
Yeah. So I think as we look at, again, what is going to allow us to grow as a city, as a county, as a community, you've got to have, businesses that are willing to locate and expand and, retain its current workforce here. You've got to have the educational opportunities. You've got to have the quality of life amenities and the, that they're seeking. You've got to have housing at various levels, whether it be housing for chronically homeless individuals all the way through to, CEOs and executives and families that maybe are working at Erie Insurance or elsewhere. That what is it going to take for them to locate their family here in the city? And that Arcturus development is exactly the type. I mean, you look here at EDDC right out the window, and they've got a waiting list. Who knows how long, right? I mean,
it's like 100 people long at least.
The demand is there. So yes, so Infinite Erie is supportive of the concept of what Arcturus is doing in our West Bayfront, because again, it's providing that infill housing at a rate that, again, we're missing here in this community specifically.
Interesting. We're talking to Kim Thomas here. Take our first break. 4:20. It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. Talking to Kim Thomas here from Infinite Erie, the amazing inclusive playbook that is surrounding these growth strategies to deliver transformative change here in Erie. Talking about half a $500 million of economic impact with these current projects, 3,500 jobs, 21 million in the state and local tax base here, and you have kind of a game plan, Kim, that I'm seeing here. It's discovery and problem solving, project development, securing investments, and then implementation. Mm-hmm. Tell me, what is the balance between hey, we're going to build something, or we're going to do a project or do a workforce thing? What's intangible versus tangible, I guess, is the question.
Yeah. So in terms of what we're supporting or the type of work
or
that
just
we're doing,
the kinds of projects that are out there. Is it all bricks and mortar, or is it a lot more, development of maybe improving the workforce participation rate, for example?
Right. Yeah. So I will say it's both. I think right now, as it exists today, it's a lot more bricks and mortar, but a lot of it is having those conversations around what are the best practices from other communities, and how do we implement those here. One of the things that we have not yet done, but has been higher on our radar and will likely be a priority for 2026, is really sitting down and thinking through, a comprehensive workforce development strategy for this region, for the county, for the city. That is something that we do not have. There have been efforts, in the past where the various universities have come together and other leadership, and now we have the community college, and we have all of these opportunities, but we need to sit down and think about it collaboratively and comprehensively. So that would be an example of something that Infinite Erie could certainly serve as a backbone, really, and provide, support in that regard to ensure that something like that is developed, again, based on best practices and based on our community as a whole, and then implemented along the way. So that's an example of something that's probably more intangible, but
right?
But that needs to happen.
Well, I want to piggy on that for a second, because you have this statewide background, right? You were a regional director here for DCED, mm-hmm. And I think when I talk to politicians, on the even years,
yes,
and we talk about Pennsylvania workforce, there's a concern about our workforce development system in Pennsylvania, and I think it's beyond just the universities and the community colleges. It's literally retraining and understanding what the workforce needs are and so on. When you put your DCED hat on, mm-hmm. did you see those kinds of issues too, as far as, is Pennsylvania really ready for prime time when it comes to the workforce?
I think it varies, probably, I would say, throughout different areas of the Commonwealth. I think that there are some areas of the Commonwealth where you see really strong, robust focus on specific industries and building up those industries and training for those specific industries.
Kind of really knowing what they're doing.
Yes, that's exactly right. And, we do have in Erie the Competitive Realities and Targeted Industries report from several years ago now, where it identified the types of industries that we should be focused on. I really believe, putting on that DCED hat, and even, the work that I do here with Infinite Erie, we need to dive even deeper into those industries and see, working again with the talent and the universities that we have here, what are some of those niche industries that we truly have or could have a competitive advantage in, and let's work with those institutions, let's work with the community college, and let's ensure that we are skilling individuals up for those jobs of the future. I think it's such an interesting time right now when you think about the workforce, when you think about jobs and what's going to be needed, and how people are probably going to have to be transitioning in one way or another, just as a sheer result of the technology and AI mm-hmm. and everything that we're talking about, which could be a whole,
right.
segment in itself.
Sure.
But yeah, it's about really studying where we can have some competitive advantage ensure that we have the workforce here, because that's, we've had the conversation with Tina and Lath. That's what those site selectors, that's what businesses are looking for, is to ensure. It's wonderful if you've got incentives and things of that nature, but they need to know if they're going to come here and they're going to invest here, that they have people that are going to help them push their product out.
And has that come up as kind of like, I think Erie has it, or Erie needs to work on it? Again, how do you think, what kind of grade we would have from not even just site selectors, but maybe those that are in the business retention and expansion mode? You could have an Erie born and bred business, yet if they want to grow and they're finding that our workforce is a limiting factor, they might just go somewhere. I mean, I think about the big industries that have left.
Yeah.
The Zerns of the world and so on. I mean, it's kind of scary when you think about that.
I don't think we're at the top of the pack when, whether it's site selectors or if it's larger industry that already exists here, as they're thinking about their bottom line and thinking about, okay, we want to do this new product line, but we're going to need, 100 new, employees, and we don't think they're here in Erie. I mean, it's a stark reality, and I think, the Redevelopment Authority and others, they see it on a consistent basis. That's why we're losing out on attraction projects.
Yeah, well, it's
part of it.
Part of it, yeah. So again, it's great that we have an organization like Infinite Erie that's saying, like a laser focus. This is part of our mission, that we're going to grow and improve the workforce here. It's just for an old guy like me, it is counterintuitive, because it used to be that we have, you always said we had the most amazing and advanced workforce, but that's of a generation that is now retiring, and we got to make sure that we have the ability to keep it going. News is next. 434, it's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. Having these crucial conversations that Erie needs from our Kingdom Financial Group studio. Kim Thomas from Infinite Erie is with us here. And Kim, let's get back to some of the cores of Infinite Erie and these portfolios. Mm-hmm. And we start with neighborhoods and main streets, and keying off of that is the housing first model. Why it works with you, and talk about where that's at, and some of the things that people can kind of get their hands around.
Yeah, so that I would say that neighborhoods and main streets portfolio has truly been our most active portfolio. There's certainly, when you think about neighborhood revitalization and housing and the like, a lot of activities happening in that space. So absolutely, really housing in its totality. We talk a lot about Erie's housing continuum. So familiar with the work of Housing First Erie. It is, the permanent supportive housing to house Erie's most chronically homeless individuals. And when we say chronically homeless, they have been unhoused without a roof over their heads for at least a year. Wow. Wyatt has been phenomenal in really, being the convener and facilitator and spearheading that work to where we now have, projects and initiatives that are underway to help close that gap and house some of those individuals. So specifically Schoolhouse Apartments over at Washington Square, up at the old Erie School District administration building. Right now, that project is, working on doing some of the cleanup currently. There's anticipated to be 22 units of housing for homeless individuals, along with the support services that are required for those individuals. How
many people would be able to live there? Is it one unit per person?
It is one, yes, it's 22.
Okay.
Yep. So
Gotcha.
There would be individual one-bedroom efficiencies, essentially. So Build CDC is the lead on that project, really working to currently put all the funding sources together at this time and get moving on that. But there's a lot of great momentum on that project specifically. And as we were rolling through and bringing all the partners together on the Housing First Erie initiative, we really recognized that we need to go even broader than that and really think about certainly all areas of Erie's housing continuum, but Infinite Erie specifically is focusing on affordable and workforce housing. So, we certainly still support all of the efforts of EDDC and Arcturus and others when we talk about the market rate housing, because we think all of it is needed. But in terms of, our time and resources and our capacity, really putting a focus on what the gap is in terms of accessible housing units, affordable housing units, and for the workforce that we're trying to attract to Erie County.
Is there any, I'm sure you guys talk about this all the time, but when you think about Erie post-war, so we're talking 70 years, okay, right? But you had people like the Baldwin brothers building house after house. I mean, 2 bedrooms and a bath. You had a nice living room, nice dining room, and maybe a galley kitchen. And they built thousands of these. And you were able to get into the house in an affordable manner. And my question is there still a market for that affordable owner-occupied home? And how do we do that? Because I keep hearing numbers like, well, it's $350 to $400 a square foot to build a house. Well, that just, to do 1,200 square feet, what is that? It's unaffordable. Too much.
That's exactly right.
How do you do that in this current climate with the cost of labor and the cost of the goods?
Yeah, so that's why you have to have public-private partnerships coming into play and being able to really think creatively in terms of some gap financing tools that can really help these projects pencil out. I do think the market is here. So if we think back 10 years, because it's been 10 years now since the Buki plan, Erie Refocus came out, and if we think specifically on that plan and how it rightly so talked about right-sizing our housing stock. So you do wonder, okay, our population is decreasing. Why should we be building new housing? Well, it's because of the quality or, the lack of quality housing, right, in the community. So over the course of 10 years, the city and the City Redevelopment Authority and others have done exactly what that plan called for, and that was to eliminate blight and right-size that housing stock. So there have been, upwards of 200 plus, properties that have been demolished, over the course of this past decade and cleaned up. And there's a lot of green space now, which is great. But now we have to really think about some of the infill and building some density in some of these, core neighborhoods that are surrounding the downtown. And that's where we're really focused and why we're really focused. Okay, the blight's being eliminated. Now we've really got to think about making sure that we have the housing stock that is not only quality, modern, but affordable to these individuals. But
and who are the players in that? Like who's looking at, hey, maybe we can build some owner occupied, maybe we can build some multifamily. Who's able to kind of have that, do those kinds of investments, because it seems like it's difficult to get those dollars.
It's absolutely difficult. So we're working very closely alongside the neighborhood organizations,
Okay.
BEST, Our West Bayfront, Sisters of St. Joseph Neighborhood Network, Build, Eastside Renaissance. We're working alongside GCAC and others, HANDS and the Housing Authority to really, in fact, we just convened a room of approximately 30 or so housing practitioners just in the past couple of weeks to really sit down and say, what are some co-development opportunities? So you see these organizations, and again, on an annual basis, they're pulling together various sources of capital, and it takes time to get a few units across the line, and some for housing opportunities, some for rental opportunities, but we need to scale that up. From the work that we've done with Infinite Erie, it's really exposed that in the city specifically, when we talk about access to quality, affordable housing, we're about 6,000 units short of the need. And we call it's like a two-tail challenge, right? So on the very bottom end, we're about 3,000 units short of deeply affordable housing, right? So that's, you're talking, probably rents less than $500 a month. And then on the far end, we're short on some of those more, higher workforce and market related housing opportunities. And the quality we're seeing, there are about 500 units in the city of Erie that are substandard. And by substandard, they don't have full kitchen or full plumbing or something that these individuals and families are living with. And that's not the type of housing that, one, we can afford, from a health standpoint for our population and providing that quality of life. But again, when we talk about this bigger picture of attracting jobs and businesses and workforce, if we don't have somewhere for them to want to live, then that's a whole other story. So
this is a long project. There's no doubt about it.
It is absolutely a long project, and a lot of different
project.
Players, right? So it's working alongside the neighborhood organizations to say, okay, if we can work alongside of you, add some capacity, could you maybe do 10 units this year as opposed to 2 or 3. It's really thinking through a few tax credit projects with the low income housing tax credits or LIHTC, maybe a couple new markets units. So it's thinking through what we're calling a path to 250, because we do have a goal supported by Infinite Erie's board of 250 units of supportive, affordable, and workforce housing over the next 5 years.
Fantastic. Let's go ahead and pivot to the next portfolio, which is industry clusters and infrastructure. And you had mentioned earlier about the concept of maybe moving the needle on some of these clusters that have been identified: advanced manufacturing, life sciences, healthcare, food processing, agriculture, year-round recreation, and business services. How do you approach that? Are you going at it like specifically on those clusters, or is it more organic of saying, hey, here's this company that's really growing in this sector, or they got this big contract, and now we need to ramp up in that particular cluster?
Yeah, it is more in that regard, right?
Yeah.
So really working alongside the chamber specifically really holds a great position in this portfolio specifically, again, with its work in terms of the businesses that we currently have here and what some of those opportunities might be. First Ascent was certainly a great example of some project movement and support that came from all sides.
That's the cancer research.
That's exactly right. Yes. That's a great example of a project that's moving in that portfolio specifically, as is what's happening at Gannon. So, I think this is where we'll see some of the, intangible infrastructure pieces come along around workforce development, strategies and things of the like. But that portfolio in particular is a great space in terms of our partnership with the chamber.
And I'm looking at some of these numbers. I mean, $350 million. Those are big lifts, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's nothing. I mean, none of this, is going to happen overnight, right? But in order to get some of these initiatives over the finish line, there has to be that very narrow focus on getting it done and getting it across the finish line, and really making the case for the impact that it's going to have on this community long term to get that investment.
Like, where would that money come from? I mean, because we've seen downtown, we've seen some private investment. They say that we're knocking on the door of $1 billion of investment. Maybe we're over that.
I would think.
Since 2017 or what have you, since Buki kind of laid down the gauntlet, right? But in order to just really push through on some of these things, to build out businesses and to build out workforce, it seems like I don't know where that would come from unless there is money from government and federal grants and things.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, to that point, we think that that's drying up for a lot of it, right? So, we're very fortunate to a certain extent to still have a great relationship with the Commonwealth and the resources that they're able to bring to bear, specifically through initiatives like PA Sites and the Redevelopment Assistance Capital Program, and obviously with the CRIS as a tool at our disposal now as a community is incredibly important. But it's coming from, you got to turn over every single stone to find every single penny to get these projects done. Yeah. If you take Ironworks Square, for example, I mean, all of the, I think we were just talking about it this morning, there are probably 10 or 11 sources of capital built into that project. But again, that doesn't happen without the private sector also showing interest in the project. Yes, the public sector, aka the Redevelopment Authority, can find the resources to build that infrastructure, but you've got to have the tenants to have the demand to come in there and lease out the space. And, now they've got people knocking down their doors to build, on the western part of the property. So it takes every single public-private philanthropic partnership. It takes ensuring that we as a community have the capacity and the wherewithal to utilize all of the tools, regardless of what they are, and to be able to think outside the box and creating where we're missing some of those.
Let's go over to inclusive entrepreneurship. And again, the goal here is to provide pathways to entrepreneurship for all segments of the population as drivers of innovation and job creation. Now we're really kind of wide open on projects here. Would these kinds of projects kind of be collective projects that maybe would foster multiple different businesses, like incubators and things like that?
That it would support projects like that, right? So when we talk about tangible and intangible, this portfolio is probably the greatest example of intangible, right? Yeah. It's bringing together, all of the providers that are working in these spaces and trying to identify from a programmatic standpoint, from a resources standpoint, what's really working. If we have specific, diverse small business loans that are going out, okay, well, where are the gaps? So it's working alongside Erie's Black Wall Street and bringing in the EDDC and their expertise around small business support. It's bringing in the chamber, small business development center, et cetera, and ensuring that we as a community have the infrastructure in place to support these types of activities. Again, whether it's providing capital to businesses, okay, there are funds in place to do that. If there is a need for, again, this Project Front Door that the EDDC and Radius Co-work have launched in terms of ensuring that regardless of who you are, where you are, what your idea is, that you have access to answers and to assistance for the questions and the needs that you have so that you can be successful. There's no reason that if anybody has a great idea or a business idea that, that they should be precluded from really exploring that just because they don't know who to turn to or where to go or think that, that it's never going to happen for them.
Well. Finally, the last portfolio are these anchor investments in the greater core. The goal is to invest in assets and accelerate market momentum within Erie's greater downtown core. And again, it's helpful to have an anchor investor like Erie Insurance and the EDDC, which is all those different folks that are involved with that. That seems to be hitting on a lot of cylinders. Still looking for like $75 million for all the projects here, but there's definitely some market momentum going on here. Can you talk about this one?
Oh, there's absolutely momentum, and I think right now that's the key, is that we ensure that momentum continues and
Like
doesn't,
you got a
doesn't die
flywheel
off.
going.
That's right. Yes, you can't let it die off. So it's working with those that are interested in investing in our downtown. It is still providing support to an entity like the EDDC, even though they have phenomenal team and capacity, but still championing to ensure that they're able to secure some of the gap financing that they might need. It's working alongside EMI again, the County Redevelopment Authority. Again, phenomenal team, great capacity, but that's a $40+ million project. That's difficult for anyone to really get across the finish line. So providing capacity there where we can to help them ensure that project keeps moving forward. And we'll certainly be working closely, we've been working very closely with the CRIZ Authority and Brian Polito, and thinking through, as they're planning to allocate resources into these CRIZ parcels, specifically along the Bayfront and the downtown, what does all of that look like? So a lot of really great momentum happening right now, whether it be with the Renaissance Center or flagship, what Drew's got going on right here outside the window.
The Commons.
Commons, yeah, absolutely.
The CRIZ is really a game changer, isn't it, for you guys?
It's a game changer for this community.
For the community, but we're talking it's $15 million a year, and they could float a bond, so that could accelerate the sheer volume of dollars to pour into these projects.
That's exactly right. When I talk, you say, where's the money going to come from? And I say, you've got to be as creative and, turn over every stone. That tool right there in and of itself should be a game changer for this community, where we have, gap financing needs and where a lot of these projects don't pencil out. But again, we recognize the impact that they'll have once they're created. So having that as a tool, there's still a lot to see kind of moving as they move forward with some of their first applications and initial projects, but it should be a game changer for Erie. And that's something that, not a lot of communities have.
So as you go into the fourth quarter and anticipate first quarter 2026, what are you going to be focusing on? What do you think is going to be the big lift for you and your team at Infinite Erie?
Yeah, so we've really been spending a lot of time these past several months more behind the scenes, really working closely alongside our board of managers and trying to identify, again, really what are our priorities, what is our specific role in this ecosystem, which, again, a supporting role for all of the great work that's happening is what we've landed on. So as we wrap up the rest of this year, we plan on reopening the playbook, seeing what else is out there. We've certainly we have those initial 35. Some have, been completed and moved on. Some may not necessarily, they may have pivoted in one way or another, and some are still in the process of development. We are here, as you mentioned earlier, to support these impactful projects through every stage of that project development along the way. So we'll be reopening the playbook, see what comes from that.
What do people need to do in order to kind of put their hand up and say, hey, can I talk to you about my idea here?
Absolutely. So on our website right now at infiniteerie.com, you'll see a headline that is Playbook 2026. And that is essentially an intake form for us to try and get an understanding of what that project is. And again, it can be just a concept or an idea at this point, but what type of impact could something like that lead to? So that intake form should be live on our website right now. But regardless of what, if anything, new comes in through there, we'll be taking a strong look at, again, what where are the areas of greatest need in terms of progressing some of these projects, prioritizing those. So certainly in 2026, we'll have a big focus on housing. That's a space that, has been building in terms of priority. We definitely want to provide that support around those inclusive economic development activities, right? So if we're seeing the incredible demand for site development at Ironworks Square, we know that we need to continue focused investment in site development to keep more of that work going, to keep that momentum going. We'll be, really thinking through, the waterfront, and as that development continues to come online and grow, working with the partners down there, working with the city to really, see how, CRIS dollars and other things are going to be allocated. So those are the areas that we'll really dive into. Again, site readiness, the housing piece, workforce development, I think, is going to be a key for us in 2026, and waterfront as well. And when I say waterfront, I'm not just talking about Erie's Bayfront here in the city of Erie, but take it all the way around through Mill Creek and the Presque Isle Gateway redevelopment over to Presque Isle, and that comprehensively in terms of investing in that asset that we have on the water. So yeah, it's going to be, all the years are busy, right? But yeah. I'm really excited about where Infinite Erie has landed in terms of really being that supporting mechanism, that backbone to ensuring that the important things that the community at large and the leadership says, this is what has to happen. This is what other communities are doing. Let's make sure it happens. Let's make sure the investment's there. Let's make sure that there are not barriers that are preventing organizations or project leads from getting them through to implementation. And
let's keep going.
Let's keep going.
Yeah.
That's right.
Kim Thomas, Infinite Erie, infiniteerie.com. Thanks for giving us an update.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Joel.
You got it here. It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show.